So White Lotus season 2. We're 2 episodes in.
Let me just say, I forgot we even said we were going to talk about
Yeah, apparently.
I'm really liking this season. Into it. This season is I have been like cackling the entire first 2 episodes. Yeah. I think it's so funny. And I think that the character relationships that they're setting up are so complicated and interesting. I am so looking forward to each episode as it's, I mean, I know that's what you're supposed to do, but like, I really cannot wait for the next episode to come out just to see like how they further these relationships every week.
Yeah. Jennifer Coolidge is just a scene stealer. She's so good.
Anytime she's in a scene, I just start laughing immediately.
Yeah.
Anytime
the whole
she's
bit
in a scene.
with like, she doesn't want to see her assistant and like just the animosity she shows towards her assistant anytime she sees her in a public place is just like hilarious. I really like I was kind of going in, okay, is this concept of a new season at a similar hotel? It's still the White Lotus, but in a different part of the world. Yeah. With all new characters, like, is that a good enough framing device for a mini series or an anthology show? Yeah. And it's like, what can Mike White explore in a different season that he didn't already cover in the first season? Like, I feel like he talked about, class differences in the first season. He talked a lot about like, America's need for any kind of like entertainment or high or drug or something like that. And he really mined some of those social awkward interactions. Yeah. And just like the weirdness of hotels in general. Yeah. And in season 2, I've really liked that, at least so far for me, he's finding a little bit new ground where, at least in the first 2 episodes, he really is narrowing down on like the modern man's tendency to not just like literally their gaze wander, but like their attention, their focus, their drive is always set outward. Yeah. I don't know if you've been picking up on this, but like every guy in this season, besides maybe like Albie, is constantly like looking elsewhere for validation, fulfillment, pleasure than what's, right in front of them. And I think that's an interesting thing for him to critique in this new season.
And I am fascinated by the kind of like the douchey best friend and Aubrey Plaza's relationship, because they keep flipping that switch between like, you hate this guy, and then they'll do something that makes him a little sympathetic and makes you feel like, oh, he may not be that bad. Like, he may actually like have a heart. Yeah. But then they keep teetering between that. And I love it because that's the way I feel whenever I meet someone new sometimes. And I have a conversation that like maybe doesn't go well. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I like that person. I don't know if like we jive. And then like I'll see them at another point in another environment and we'll have like a honest conversation and be like, man, I feel like I misjudged that person. And then see them again and it's like the opposite. It very much mirrors the way I feel like you kind of get to know someone in a group environment. Yeah. I've kind of had that happen. And I think that that's just so, I really like that feeling of the unknown of like, what are we going to get with this exchange? Like, what is this exchange going to bring? Is it going to be positive or negative? I
feel like that's what Mike White does really well. And he did in season 1 and this season is like, there's no real clear like person in the right. Yeah. Because at first you're like, okay, so the I can't remember their names, but not the Aubrey Plaza couple, the other couple, you know. Oh, well, they're not in touch with the news, with time. They're more accepting of the fact that they have money and they're not ashamed of it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, at first you're like, oh, these people are insufferable. But then as you watch Aubrey Plaza and her husband, you're like, well, just because they're more in touch with the news and with quote unquote culture, they are very cynical, but they also don't acknowledge like their own privilege. Right. And they can almost be just in the way they judge the other couple. It's like, well, just because you're in touch doesn't mean you have to be so insufferably cynical.
Yeah.
And like not open to like hearing other people, getting to know other people, and they're almost a little bit in their high horse, and you're like, okay, well, they're not right either, but neither are they. And with every relationship in the show, you're like, it's just so complex and nuanced with the character dynamics.
Yeah. Well, and I really love that about each character's interaction and how they start to intersect with each other. And I mean, the hotel is just a perfect medium for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there's a mystery within each relationship, and it almost feels like, obviously there's the larger mystery of
that dead body
who died.
Yeah.
But then there's these little nuggets in every relationship and in every conversation of like, what direction is this going to go? Like, are they going to end up liking each other? Are they going to end up hating each other? Or are they going to end up, dead? Yeah. I love that. It's a heavily dialogue show, but it feels almost in the way that it's presented like thrillery or like such a mystery in every conversation I feel like they have with each other. There's like almost like clues.
Yeah. So I'm going to say something that out of context would sound like a criticism, but I find it so interesting, at least for me in season 1 and this season. I don't care who the dead body is.
Right. Yeah.
And at first you're like, oh, well then Mike White is failing to write like a whodunit or create mystery. And I'm like, I almost think it's a positive where it's like, he doesn't need to rely on the whodunit nature of that body.
Yeah.
It's almost there to just serve a foreboding, kind of atmosphere of something is going to hit the fan. Something bad's going to hit the fan.
Yeah.
But I'm not watching it going like, wait, are they the dead body? It's almost like secondary. And I like that. I can be in the moment with the characters in the scenes.
Yeah.
And I'm not out of the moment trying to guess and figure things out. It's like the scenes are so tense, dramatically tense, that I can be present in them and not overthink it. Whereas I feel like with a lot of whodunits, you're almost watching it from afar, very overly analytical, like, oh wait, maybe they could be. It's like, no, that's
trying to solve it too hard.
Yeah,
you're
just
like
be in the
not
moment with the
enjoying
character.
it.
Yeah, and I love that about White Lotus, where the whodunit dead body doesn't overtake the show.
Yeah,
and that's I think
too.
That's a credit. Like,
yeah, I think so too.
You almost don't need it. It's there as a cherry on top.
Yeah, and you wouldn't expect that. And you're totally right. That would sound like a criticism out of context. But yeah, you would not expect that. You would expect that to be the drive behind it. But again, and I feel like through conversations that we've had recently about shows and movies, it's like this show is heavily character driven. And he has a way of making you interested in who these characters are, what their motivations are, and where they're going. And that is like the first thing that I'm interested in the show. And the dead body definitely takes second fiddle to those characters that he's developing. Yeah. And I'm so excited to see how that show unfolds. And I'm just really looking forward to the third episode and just how he ends up wrapping it. I have a feeling I'm going to be like, I never want this show to end. Just like keep it going because the environment is so good. And
were you giving me the wrap it up signal?
Yes, I was.
At first I thought you were just showing me like your lock screen. I was like, oh, that's a nice picture.
No, I was saying I need to go.
Yeah.
But I did want to say I really like this show.
Yeah.
So